Ladies and gentlemen, friends, there comes a time in every life when we look up from where we stand and ask ourselves, why am I here? What is my purpose? And I'm here today to tell you something that may change the way you see your life forever. You are not here by accident. You are not walking this earth aimlessly. You were chosen by the one who made you for a greater purpose. Now, some of you might be thinking, how do I know if I've been chosen? How do I know if there's something greater for me? I'll tell you, there are signs along the way. And if you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your heart, you'll begin to see them. One, an unshakable restlessness in your spirit. Deep inside, you feel unsettled. You can have success, comfort, even praise from others, and yet there is a longing that remains unfulfilled. That restlessness is not a curse, it's a calling. It's God's way of whispering to you, there is more. You were made for more. The world may try to silence it with noise, but that quiet stirring in your soul is a sign that you are being prepared for something greater than yourself. 2 Enduring trials that refine, not destroy. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to face battle after battle, storm after storm? It's because God does not waste his finest soldiers on easy missions. Your trials have not come to destroy you, but to prepare you. Each tear you've cried, each night you've wondered if you'd make it to morning, those were not wasted. God has been refining you in the fire, making you stronger, braver, and more compassionate, because he has chosen you for a purpose that requires endurance. 3, there are people in this world who walk by suffering and feel nothing, but then there's you. Your heart breaks for the broken. You can't turn away. You feel drawn to help, to heal, to lift up those who've fallen. That compassion was planted in you by design. It's not weakness, it's your calling. When you feel that urge to stand beside the hurting, that's God saying, I need you here. This is your mission field. 4 doors closing so the right one can open. Some of you are grieving opportunities you thought were meant for you, jobs lost, relationships ended, dreams unfulfilled, but hear me now. Those closed doors were not failures. They were divine protection. God has a way of shutting the wrong doors so you'll find the right one. When you are chosen for something greater, you can't settle for what's less. Every no you've faced may just be God's way of making room for a yes that will change everything. 5, you hear the whisper, there is more for you in your quiet moments. When the world is still, you feel it, you sense it, a gentle whisper that tells you there's more for you. That's the voice of the one who created you, calling you forward. You were not made to blend in. You were made to stand out. You were not made for the easy road. You were made for the narrow path, the higher calling, the greater purpose. There comes a time in a person's life when the ordinary no longer satisfies. You could be walking through the routines of your day, fulfilling your responsibilities, doing what is expected of you, and still there's an ache deep inside, a quiet but persistent stirring. It's as if your soul is whispering, you were made for something more. And no matter how much you try to ignore it, that whisper doesn't go away. That is not your imagination. It is not an empty longing. It's a sign that God is at work in you. It is his hand on your life, calling you out of the ordinary into the extraordinary. When you are chosen for a greater purpose, you begin to sense it long before you fully understand it. There's a restlessness that won't let you be content with where you are. You can be surrounded by comfort and security. You can have people praising you and telling you that you have everything you need. Yet inside you feel like something is missing. You are grateful for the blessings you have, but there's an emptiness you can't explain, and it presses on your heart. That is the divine stirring. It's God planting a desire in you for something beyond what your eyes can see and your hands can touch. He is preparing you for the journey ahead. This restlessness is not something you chose. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to long for something greater. No, it was placed in you by God himself. Long before you were born, he marked you for a purpose. He set you apart, and now he's awakening you to that reality. That stirring inside of you is the call of destiny. It's his way of telling you that he's not finished with you yet. There's more to come. Greater things are still ahead. But often this restlessness can feel uncomfortable. It unsettles you. It makes you question where you are in life and where you're going. You may even wonder if something is wrong with you because you can't seem to be satisfied like others are. But let me assure you, there's nothing wrong with you. This feeling of holy discontent is not a flaw. It's a sign that God is moving in your life in a powerful way. It's a sign that he's inviting you to step out of the familiar and into the unknown, where he will use you in ways you never thought possible. Many people try to silence this feeling. They distract themselves with work, with entertainment, with busyness. They fill their schedules, their minds, and their hearts with anything that will quiet the ache inside. But no matter how hard they try, the longing remains. Because you cannot outrun the call of God on your life. You can't fill the space that only he can fill with anything else. The restlessness is his invitation to draw closer, to listen, to prepare for the purpose he has for you. Sometimes this stirring shows up as a dissatisfaction with what used to fulfill you. The job you once loved no longer excites you. The things you used to dream about no longer satisfy your soul. You look around and realize that everything that seemed important before no longer holds the same weight. That's because God is shifting your focus. He's pulling your attention away from temporary things and setting your sights on eternal things. He's lifting your eyes from the ground beneath your feet and pointing them toward the horizon of his greater plan. And when you are restless in spirit, you begin to see the world differently. You notice the needs of others more clearly. You feel a deeper compassion. You sense an urgency to make your life count for something that lasts. This is not accidental. God often uses restlessness to awaken you to his purpose for your life. It's his way of preparing you for the next step, of prompting you to take action, of moving you toward the path he designed just for you. This inner stirring may lead you to places you never thought you'd go. It may call you to leave behind comfort and safety to embrace risk and faith. You may find yourself stepping out when others stay behind, believing when others doubt, holding on when others give up. And that's because the restlessness in your spirit is God calling you higher. He's inviting you to trust him with your future, to surrender your plans in exchange for his, to walk by faith even when you can't see the whole picture. You may not have all the answers right now. You may feel uncertain about what's next. But one thing is sure, God doesn't stir your heart for no reason. If he has placed a longing in you for something more, it's because he has something more for you. The restlessness is the evidence that he's preparing you for his purpose. It's the sign that you have been chosen for something beyond yourself. And if you are willing to listen to that stirring, if you are willing to follow where it leads, you will step into a life of meaning, impact, and eternal significance. So when you feel that pull in your spirit, don't ignore it. Don't run from it. It's not a burden, it's a blessing. It's not confusion, it's a calling. It's the gentle hand of God leading you toward the greater purpose he has prepared for you since the beginning of time. There are seasons in life when it feels as though the weight of the world is pressing down on your shoulders. Times when the storms rage so fiercely that you can barely keep standing. You may find yourself asking why the trials keep coming, why the burdens feel so heavy, and why the path seems so steep. But I want to tell you something that may change the way you see your struggles. The hardships you face are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to refine you. They are not a sign that God has forgotten you, but a sign that he is preparing you for something greater. When God has chosen you for a purpose beyond what you can imagine, he does not send you out unprepared. He allows you to walk through seasons of testing and trial because he is shaping you into the person who can carry the weight of his calling. The fire you feel is not a punishment. It is the refining fire of his love. Just as gold is purified in the heat of the furnace, so too are his chosen refined through the trials of life. And though it is not easy, it is necessary, for without the refining, we are not ready to fulfill the mission he has set before us. You see, it is in the hard places that we learn how to trust him fully. When everything else is stripped away, when the comforts and certainties of life no longer hold us up, we find ourselves leaning into his strength in ways we never did before. We cry out to him from the depths of our soul, and in that crying out, we discover that his grace is sufficient. His power is made perfect in our weakness. And slowly through the pain and the struggle, our faith grows deeper, our character is strengthened, our hearts become tender toward those who suffer, because we know what it means to walk through the valley and come out the other side. God does not waste a single tear. He does not overlook a single wound. Every moment of suffering, every sleepless night, every prayer uttered through tears, he gathers them all and he uses them to shape you, to mold you, to prepare you for something you cannot yet see. The pain you are enduring is not the end of your story. It is the preparation for a greater chapter yet to be written. The trials you are facing are equipping you to stand strong when others fall. They are building in you the endurance to run the race set before you without giving up. Often it is those who are called to the highest purposes who walk through the deepest valley. God does not place great responsibility in the hands of those who have not been tested. He entrusts his most significant missions to those who have been proven in the fires of adversity. And if you find yourself walking through such a fire, take heart. It means he sees in you something you may not yet see in yourself. He sees your potential. He sees your strength. And he is working all things together for your good and for his glory. There are times when the trial feels too much to bear, when the weight is crushing and hope feels distant. But even then, you are not alone. God walks with you through the fire. He does not leave you to face it by yourself. And though you may feel the heat of the flames, you will not be consumed. Though the waters rise, they will not drown you. He is your refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. And in the end, you will come through stronger than you ever imagined, with a faith that cannot be shaken. Many of the greatest figures in history, the ones who changed the world, who carried light into darkness, were people who endured great suffering. They were refined through hardship and made ready for their calling through pain. And their stories remind us that God uses broken vessels to pour out his greatest blessings. He uses the wounded to bring healing, the scarred to bring hope. Your scars do not disqualify you. They are evidence that you survived what was meant to destroy you. They are proof that you were held in the hands of a faithful God who brought you through. When you are chosen for a greater purpose, you will often be called to endure trials that others may never understand. But those trials are not a sign of God's rejection. They are a sign of his preparation. He is building something in you that can only be forged through adversity. And when the time comes, you will stand ready, not because you were never tested, but because you were tested and found faithful. Hold on through the storm. Keep your eyes on the one who holds your future in his hands. Trust that the refining process you are walking through now is making you into a vessel of honor, ready for every good work he has planned for you. The trials you endure will not break you. They will make you. They are shaping you for the greater mission you were born to fulfill. There is something deeply powerful about a heart that cannot turn away from the pain of others. It is not a burden that everyone carries, but if you find yourself feeling the weight of someone else's suffering as if it were your own, you are carrying something sacred. It's not by accident. That compassion that stirs within you, the ache you feel when you see someone hurting, the pull in your spirit to reach out and help even when it costs you something, that is not something you chose. It was placed inside of you by the hand of God himself. It is a sign that you have been called for a greater purpose. When God calls someone to make a difference, He often begins by softening their heart in ways that others don't always understand. You may look around and wonder why others can pass by without noticing, why they seem untouched by the struggles you see so clearly. But you can't help yourself. You feel their pain, their fear, their loneliness. And something inside you won't let you walk away. You are compelled to do something, say something, offer something, even if it's just a kind word or a helping hand. This relentless compassion is not a weakness. It is a strength. It is evidence of a calling that runs deep, a purpose that God has planted in your life. True compassion costs something. It's not always convenient. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes it means giving when you feel empty yourself. Sometimes it means showing up for someone when you're fighting your own battles. There are moments when you'll pour yourself out with no guarantee of being refilled right away. But there's something inside of you that tells you it's worth it. You can't look the other way because God has given you a heart that beats in rhythm with His. And His heart always beats for the broken, the hurting, the lost. That persistent compassion you feel is not just emotion. It's a call to action. It's God inviting you to be His hands and feet in a world that desperately needs His love. When you comfort someone who is grieving, you are speaking the language of heaven. When you help someone who is struggling, you are reflecting the character of Christ. Every time you serve, no matter how small the act may seem, you are participating in something eternal. You are part of a mission that is bigger than yourself. It's easy to get tired when you carry a heart like this. There will be times when you wonder if you're making any difference at all. You may feel invisible, overlooked, or taken for granted. But God sees you. He sees every sacrifice you've made, every time you've chosen kindness over convenience, every moment you've extended grace when it wasn't returned. And He honors it. He honors the compassion that refuses to quit. You are not forgotten. In fact, you are seen more clearly by God in those moments than at any other time. This world can be harsh, people can be unkind, and the temptation to close your heart to protect yourself will be strong. But you weren't made to live with a closed heart. You weren't created to stay safe behind walls. You were made to love deeply, to give freely, to serve generously. It's not an easy path, but it is a holy one. And the compassion you carry is a light in a dark world. It's a healing balm in a world full of wounds. When you show compassion, you are showing people a glimpse of the love of God, and that changes everything. God never wastes compassion. He uses it to open doors, to heal broken places, to restore hope. You may never fully see the impact of your kindness on this side of eternity, but it matters. Every time you choose love over indifference, you are sowing seeds that will bear fruit in due time. You are part of a story that God is writing, a story of redemption, of healing, of grace. And your compassion is one of His greatest tools in that story. There's a reason you feel what you feel. There's a reason you care as much as you do. It's because you've been chosen to stand in the gap. You've been entrusted with a heart that beats with heaven's compassion. And while it may be exhausting at times, it's also the clearest sign that you are walking in the purpose God has for you. He is using your life to touch others in ways you can't always see. When you think you've given all you have, remember that God is your source. He will replenish what you've poured out. He will strengthen you when you are weary, and He will continue to work through your compassion to bring hope and healing to a world that desperately needs both. You have been chosen not just to feel, but to act, to love, and to serve. And that relentless compassion in you is the evidence of a divine calling that will not fade. It is who you are. It is what you were made for. There are moments in life when a door you were counting on suddenly shuts. It might be a job you were sure was yours, a relationship you thought would last, a dream you poured your heart into that somehow slips through your fingers. You stand there staring at the closed door, wondering why it happened, what you did wrong, or whether you missed a step along the way. But I want to tell you, just because a door closed doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it's not rejection, it's redirection. It's God guiding you, often gently but firmly, away from what you thought was right and toward what He knows is best. When you are chosen for a greater purpose, your life doesn't always follow a straight line. It's not always clear at first where God is leading you. There will be detours and disappointments, but those are not signs that you're lost. They are often the clearest evidence that God's hand is upon you, steering you away from paths that might have distracted you, delayed you, or even harmed you. You may not understand it in the moment, but looking back, you will see how every closed door was His mercy in disguise. Some of the most painful experiences in life are unanswered prayers. You may have prayed with all your heart for something to work out, a promotion, a move, an opportunity that seemed perfect. And yet, no matter how hard you tried, the door remained shut. It's easy to feel discouraged in those moments, to believe that God has forgotten you or that you somehow missed His will. But when God closes a door, He does it with purpose. He sees the things you can't see. He knows what's waiting on the other side, and sometimes in His love for you, He will block the way. Not to harm you, but to protect you. There are times when you are so focused on a single opportunity that you don't even realize it's too small for the calling on your life. What you thought was the destination was only meant to be a stop along the journey. And God, in His wisdom, closes the door so you won't settle for less than He has planned for you. He doesn't want you to build your life around something temporary when He has something lasting in mind. He doesn't want you to miss the greater door He's opening because you're still holding on to the one that's closed. The closed door is often a test of trust. Will you believe that God is still working even when you don't understand? Will you trust that His plan is still unfolding even when it feels like everything is falling apart? Faith is not just believing when doors swing wide open. It's trusting when they slam shut. It's holding on to hope when the path ahead seems uncertain. And for those who are called according to His purpose, there is always something greater on the horizon. Sometimes God closes doors to teach you to wait. We live in a world that values speed and instant results, but God's timing is perfect, and it is often slower than we expect. Waiting is not wasted time. In the waiting, He is preparing you, refining you, and strengthening you so you will be ready when the right door opens. If He opened the door too soon, you might not be prepared to walk through it, but when His timing aligns, no power in heaven or earth can keep that door from opening. And when that right door opens, you will know it. It won't be forced. You won't have to strive or manipulate or beg for it to happen. It will open with grace, and it will come with peace. It may still require courage and faith to walk through, but there will be an undeniable sense that this is the path you were meant to walk. And when you look back, you will thank God for every door that closed, because it brought you to the one that truly mattered. God's plan for you is bigger than a single opportunity. His purpose is not confined to one door or one chance. If something didn't work out, it's not the end of the story. It's part of the journey towards something greater. Don't let a closed door make you doubt your calling. Don't let it cause you to give up. Instead, lift your eyes and trust that the one who holds your future is leading you forward. He is not finished. He is preparing a way, and when the right door opens, you'll step through and realize it was worth every moment of waiting, every tear shed at closed doors, and every step of faith that brought you there. There are times when everything around you is calm, and yet deep within, something stirs. In quiet moments, in the stillness of prayer, or even in the middle of a busy day, you sense it, that soft, persistent whisper that there is more for you. It's not loud or demanding. It doesn't shout above the noise of life, but it is steady and sure, and you can't shake the feeling that you were made for something beyond what you see right now. It's as if something inside of you knows that your story isn't finished. that your purpose is unfolding in ways you can't yet understand. This quiet prompting isn't just your imagination. It's not wishful thinking or idle daydreams. It's the voice of God speaking to your heart, drawing you closer to the life He has prepared for you. Sometimes it comes in the form of a restless yearning, a sense that where you are right now is not where you're meant to stay. Other times it feels like a gentle encouragement, a reminder that you are not forgotten and that there is still more for you to do, more for you to experience, more for you to become. It often happens in the spaces between your everyday responsibilities. You could be driving to work, standing in line, or lying awake at night, and there it is. That quiet sense that you were made for more than this moment. You feel it in your spirit, not in a way that dismisses where you are now, but in a way that calls you to something greater. It's a holy discontent, not because you are ungrateful, but because God is stirring up a greater purpose within you. You might try to ignore it at times. Life is busy and responsibilities are real. It can feel easier to focus on what's in front of you, to stick with what's familiar and safe, but no matter how much you try to settle, the whisper remains. It's God's gentle nudge reminding you that He has placed gifts within you that are not meant to stay hidden. He has woven potential into your life that is not meant to be left untapped. That small voice calling you forward is not there to frustrate you, but to guide you. It is the assurance that there is a path marked out for you, even if you cannot yet see the whole road. And it's not always about doing something grand in the eyes of the world. Sometimes the more God has for you is deeper than anything external. It's a more profound sense of peace, a greater capacity to love, a stronger faith that can weather any storm. Sometimes it's about stepping into a role that may seem small but carries eternal weight. A parent raising children in faith, a friend offering hope to someone in despair, a servant quietly working behind the scenes in ways that change lives. But whether it's a calling that is visible to many or known only to you and God, the whisper remains constant. It speaks to your heart, encouraging you to keep moving forward. It tells you that you are not done yet. You may have walked through seasons that wore you down, times when you felt overlooked or unimportant. You may have doubted your worth or wondered if you had anything left to give. And yet, the whisper comes again. There is more for you. This voice isn't rushed. It's patient and kind. It doesn't push, it invites. It reminds you that your life has purpose beyond the ordinary. It tells you that no moment is wasted, that every experience is shaping you for what's ahead. And even when you feel uncertain or unqualified, the whisper speaks louder than your fear. It carries the hope that God is not finished writing your story. There is something profoundly comforting about knowing that you are not the author of your own destiny. God is. He knows the plans He has for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. That whisper you hear is His voice, reassuring you that He is guiding you. He is preparing you. He is calling you to trust Him for the next step. You may not see how it all fits together right now. You may feel like you're standing in a hallway, waiting for the next door to open. But that quiet voice keeps you steady, it keeps you hopeful, it gives you the strength to wait with expectation, knowing that when the time is right, God will reveal the more He has for you. Until then, listen. Listen for the whisper in prayer, in Scripture, in the quiet spaces of your heart. Let it remind you that you are chosen, that your life has meaning, and that the best is yet to come. You were made for more, not because you need to prove anything, but because God has placed a calling on your life that only you can fulfill. And that calling is alive and active, quietly urging you onward toward the greater purpose He has designed just for you. Closing words, I don't know your name, but I know this about you. You were chosen. Chosen to rise above your circumstances, chosen to love when it's easier to hate, chosen to stand firm when others fall away. And if you listen, if you trust, God will lead you into a purpose beyond anything you've ever imagined. The time is now. The world is waiting. You have been chosen for a greater purpose.